preparing to live stream the meeting.
It's up on the screen now, so it's live and you can grab it.
I just have to make sure it's muted.
If you search for Community Church of Boston within YouTube, you'll get the
Okay. So it's 11:01. And if Jay is ready, we are going to get this party started. Jay?
Yes, I am ready.
Good morning. Good morning, Community Church of Boston. As usual, we are a straggling congregation. We have 7 participants, and we just went live on YouTube. But we're going to start on time, which is a beautiful thing, because we have a beautiful friend of mine joining us from Amherst. His name is Jay Mankita, and I worship this man's songwriting. I have, in fact, over the years recorded 3 of his songs, and I also thought of Jay on this occasion because we're on the verge of Earth Day, and Jay has written some beautiful songs about the planet. And I don't say that by way of making any requests, Jay. I just say that by saying, Jay, welcome to Community Church, and take it away. We'll put you on the spotlight. Whoops.
Thank you. And you'll let me know if you're not hearing one of my instruments.
Sounds good.
All right, good. So I'm going to start with a celebratory song about nature and life and creatures called The History of Music. In every bird and beast, from west to east, every fish and fowl, things that hoot and howl, every insect and reptile, from the beetle to the crocodile. The history of music is in the song of life. Yeah, it's in the song of life. Oh, the history of music began a long time ago, when the world first blossomed like a beautiful flower. Music too began to grow. Vibrations from that moment may still be faintly heard with the radio telescope and in the sound of every beast and bird. Well, our world is made out of music, poets and scientists say, from the moment of creation, which is still going on today. You have to listen deeply to hear the underlying sound inside you, outside you, and everywhere around. In every bird and beast, from west to east, every fish and fowl, things that hoot and howl, every insect and reptile, from the beetle to the crocodile. The history of music is in the song of life. Yeah, it's in the song of life. Well, the owls wake the evening, and the blackbird breaks the dawn, and the bees buzz and the barking dogs build a chorus to the sun. You don't have to tell the children to shout their joy and sing, for the music of the world is in every living thing. In the whale across the ocean, in 1,000 geese in flight, in the crickets out my window, and the song I sing at night. We're all making our music without even knowing how, for the history of music is all happening right now. In every bird and beast, from west to east, every fish and fowl, things that hoot and howl, every insect and reptile, crocodile. The history of music is in the song of life. Yes, in the song of life.
Yay, Jay! New song?
No, old song.
Old song? I hadn't heard that before. It's totally lovely. And thanks for singing it for us. There'll be more Jay coming up right soon, but first we're going to do what we always do. First thing is light a candle from our beautiful auditorium here, hoping that soon you can be here and you be the one who lights a candle in memory of somebody or to say a word about whatever you want to say, and replace me in this task of facilitating this meeting. My name is Dean Stevens, and I am your guitar player and presently administrator of Community Church and bottle washer as well. So that's our start of the service. I'm also toying with a new little trick, which is Susie Giroux just entered. Hi, Susie, which is to have my iPhone so I can show you a little bit of what is going on in the auditorium right now. First of all, in the backdrop is a very beautiful quilt made by Crystal Rollins Jackson, who is our office and publications manager and just a really gifted artist. Crystal is part of a group that's called Sisters in Stitches Joined by the Cloth. And I love that name because Sisters in Stitches suggests not just a quilters guild, but it's like they're laughing uproariously at the same time. And they make beautiful quilts, and they do displays all over all over Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, and once did one right here in the auditorium. But that's a beautiful quilt, and it's here because in addition to fabulous graphic designer, quilter, singer, Crystal is also a poet and participated in a weekend Poetry Month celebration that's an annual event that we have here at the church. And that was her backdrop for her poetry reading. We also had Beatrice Green, who played that piano as part of the poetry reading. Let me see if I can make that big and show you our beautiful piano and show you our Sacco and Vanzetti bas-relief. Here's another incredible poster. It's called Say Their Names, that we should probably put back out on the street right now as the...
Yeah. Dean, you're showing your just yourself and not the...
I'm showing myself?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I have to pin this.
Oh,
It's in the iPhone. Look in the corner.
The iPhone is pinned, is it not?
no, you're pinned.
I'm pinned. How did that happen? Okay. Well, maybe I'll skip this part. I was going to walk around the auditorium, but
Do another song and do it after it.
how's that? That's really me, right?
Yes.
Now? Okay. So I'm going to do a different thing, which is talk about next Sunday. Scott and Helen Nearing figured largely in the history of Community Church. Scott gave lectures here numerous times. He would come into town and lecture for 4 nights in a row, 2 lectures a night. And they would charge $1 for people to come in and hear these lectures. And then he would speak on the Sunday. And at that time, maybe it was in the 50s, they would be in a conservatory auditorium, which would hold 600 people. Anyway, I wanted to show you from our library If you don't know about Scott and Helen Nearing, Scott Nearing was a sociology professor and PhD, and also a socialist, and a huge conscientious objector to World War I, to the point that in his public place he was accused of sedition, and there was a sedition trial against him in 1919. And next week's speaker is named Greg Joly, and he is a longtime disciple and scholar of Scott and Helen Nearing. Greg joins us from the town of Jamaica, Vermont, where Scott and Helen Nearing had a farm for a long time. So here's some of the Nearing's books, which are in our library. The Maple Sugar Book, Continuing the Good Life, Loving and Leaving the Good Life. Scott died at 100 in the mid-80s. The Scott Nearing Reader, Scott Nearing, Apostle of American Revolution. These books are all in our library. I want to show you a couple other books written by upcoming speakers. Reinventing Food Banks and Pantries, New Tools to End Hunger by Katie Martin, who's speaking here in a couple of days. Katie is on the same publisher as Carey, who is our speaker today, Island Press. And we also happen to have in our library a hardcover copy of Carey's book, The Monsanto Papers. Carey, I hope you can join us sometime to sign this book and make it a permanent part of our library, which is composed in great part of books written by different speakers who have spoken here, the likes of Howard Zinn, Noam Chomsky, Martin Luther King. It's quite a list, I'll tell you.
Good company, yeah.
You're in good company. Finally, here's another book by another author another speaker here, General Smedley Butler. He spoke here in the 50s. War is a Racket. And he talked about his experiences as a Marine lieutenant and almost commandant, but he was passed up as commandant, which is the highest honor in the Marines, because of his opposition to U.S. imperialist wars. One more little book. I want to read a passage, which I do often, from Eduardo Galeano. He's my favorite author of all time, and this book has a little entry for every day. Galeano writes a lot in small, like vignettes, a couple of paragraphs, and this is for April 19th. I haven't read this yet, by the way. Today, in 1995, Albert Einstein died. For 22 years, the FBI tapped his telephone, read his mail, and went through his garbage. They spied on Einstein because he was a spy for the Russians. So said his bulky police file. The file also said that he had invented a death ray and a robot that could read minds. It said Einstein was a member, collaborator, or fellow traveler of 34 Communist Front organizations between 1937 and 1954, and was honorary chair of 3 communist organizations. It concluded, quote, "It seems unlikely that a man of his background could in such a short time become a loyal American citizen." Not even death saved him. They continued spying on him, not the FBI, but his colleagues, men of science who sliced his brain into 240 pieces and analyzed them to find an explanation for his genius. They found nothing. Einstein had already warned, quote, "I have no special gift. I am only passionately curious." End quote. Eduardo Galeano, Children of the Days. Jay Mankita, are you ready to give us another song? Unmute, please. There we go.
Yes.
Take
Let
it
me know
away,
if
my
any-
friend Jay.
Do I need to turn anything down or up, or is everything good?
The guitar sounded great, and this is a keyboard number now?
Does that sound all right?
I can't hear the
Mick?
keyboard at all, Jay. Can't hear it.
All right. One moment. How's that?
Very good. Little louder.
All right, and you can hear the
Little louder the keyboard.
All right, Dean, here's a song that you know. I do it a lot differently and more slow, but I know. As I have come to know this world from the moment of my birth until the day my life has gone, I'll pledge allegiance to the earth. I'll pledge allegiance to the earth. From this earth we have grown, planet body Gaia home, learning to make peace with ourselves, realize we are not alone. We are all made of clay, and we'll all return someday. All our weapons and our power, not so hard to wash away. As I have come to know this world from the moment of my birth until the day my life has gone, I'll pledge allegiance to the earth. I'll pledge allegiance to the earth. As we live, so live all. Flags and countries rise and fall in the rhythm of our planet. I can hear my own heart call as I have come to know this world from the moment of my birth until the day my life has gone. I'll pledge allegiance to the earth. I'll pledge allegiance to the earth.
Thank you, Jay. I love that song. Love that song. Love it on the guitar, love it on the piano, and a bunch of others Jay has written over the years. Charlie, you had your hand up. Was there some? technical issue or anything? Or unmute.
That was one hand clapping.
Oh, one hand clap. Okay, got it. Got it. So I want to take this chance to give you a little look at what's going on in front of Community Church. We have our building, if you don't know, is on Boylston Street in Copley Square, kind of in the middle of a very upscale retail neighborhood and upscale dining and lots of big office buildings. And we are a 5-story building purchased in 1946 by the Community Church for next to nothing. And I just want to show you what we have on our sidewalk right now. It's two sandwich boards. These sandwich boards are problematic because there's ridiculous wind shear and they fall down. They come down no matter how well you try to weight them down or tie them down. This is our new schedule for the next couple of months, different things. And here is a new use that I just pioneered. I found that my T-shirts fit right over the other sandwich board, and so that's the first little message we're going to display to 20,000 people who walk by. This is also the finish line for the Boston Marathon, and I can hardly wait till there's another physical Boston Marathon so we can really display our freak flag colors out on the street. Okay, enough of that, and we stop the sharing, and we move on to our wonderful speaker this morning. I've really just gotten inspired, and I urge all of you stalwart Community Church members to take this same approach. You read something that inspires you and moves you or angers you, find out who the author is or find out who the subject of the article is. Invite them to Community Church. And guess what? Sometimes they'll say yes. And that's what happened this morning. And that's what I hope will happen with some other things that I read. An author I've admired for a long time, his name is Carl Safina. He writes about the ocean. He's a oceanographer, and has written a lot of kind of oceanography for the masses. I want to get our program committee to invite him to speak. Here's another one. This is somebody that Bostonians know. His name is Tito Jackson. He ran for mayor when Marty Walsh won, and this was one of his opponents. This is an article from this past week about Tito Jackson's reunion with his biological mom, who had him when she was 13, and she had been raped by 2 boys, and she gave him up for adoption. And Tito Jackson's reunion with his biological mother in New Bedford. I want to invite Tito Jackson to come and talk to us. This is what we at Community Church have the liberty to do. We're hungry to find out and hear from all sorts of voices. They don't have to be preachers. They can be journalists. They can be scientists. They can be university professors. They can be musicians, whatever. It's kind of like make up your own religion in a way. But let's get to Carey Gillam. Thank you for joining us this morning, Carey. I want to read this description of Carey, and I think it's true, having read some parts of the book, and I want to read her other books. Carey writes a lot for Time magazine. Investigative journalist Carey Gillam has spent more than 20 years researching and reporting on how our food is produced, spending most of her career with the international news agency Reuters. She has been compared to Rachel Carson because of her two books that reveal decades of corporate secrets and deceptive tactics by powerful pesticide companies, including the global giant Monsanto. Gillam has become recognized as an international expert on corporate control of agriculture and how a pesticide-dependent food system is endangering our health. She testified as an invited expert to the European Parliament in 2017 and was an invited speaker at the World Forum for Democracy in Strasbourg, France in 2019. Gillam now works as a writer and researcher at the nonprofit investigative group U.S. Right to Know and as a contributor to the Guardian news outlet. Carey, we're so glad you are here, and we were hoping that maybe Lee Johnson, who is the plaintiff of this lawsuit that Carey will tell us about, would join us, but if not, the floor is yours to tell us all about Lee, and please give Lee our warmest and most sincere wishes of health to him and his family as best we can. Yeah. Carey Gillam, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I've been texting Lee here this morning. He hasn't responded. You know, he may join us. I told him we're going to be doing this for a while, so if he can, he will. You know, it's day to day for him. We will talk about him here in a minute, but I want to say thank you very much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. You know, I feel like you made the point, in good company. I feel very honored. You know, it is hard, I think, awkward, maybe interacting through a computer screen due to COVID, but, you know, this is what we've been doing. And I think really, if you look at the lessons that we've learned over this past year of the pandemic and really the lives lost and the sickness and the suffering that we've endured, it really underscores a lot of what I want to talk about, that, you know, we are allowing our world to become sicker and sicker. You know, our air and our water and our, you know, soil and our own selves are becoming more and more exposed to and sickened by these environmental toxins that, you know, are just pervasive in our world today. And the science is very clear, you know, that these environmental toxins make us weak. They make us more vulnerable to not only viruses such as COVID-19, but also to cancers and reproductive problems and just a range of other illnesses and disease. So, you know, we've suffered through COVID, but we're suffering in many other ways, and we really need to pay attention to this health problem. And I think it's so important, especially on Earth Day or Earth Sunday, you know, to note that, you know, we owe it to our children, you know, and their children and their grandchildren to change the path that we're on. And I think Earth Day is just a reminder to us all that we really need to care for the Earth as we care for our children, because the two are inextricably linked. And when the planet suffers, our children suffer. And when, you know, I've started to cough now, just as it's my turn to speak. But if we can work to nurture and sustain the planet, then we provide a healthier home for future generations. So I am going to talk about my book, but I really wanted to get that point across. So let's see if I can share my screen properly. All right. Did I do that correctly? Yes? Okay. Hopefully everybody can now see my my screen. So I call this a conversation about accountability because I hope everybody listening will really understand that my book, this book, focuses really on the story of one man, one dying man, and his struggle to hold one company accountable. But this is in the context of the larger story and the larger need for accountability that we have regarding a range of companies and chemicals that are endangering us right now. And when we talk about, disease and we look at statistics, it doesn't feel personal, I think, but I'm hoping that, this book does feel personal and it will resonate with people. So I'm going to take you through a little bit. You may not get to see Lee here, in person, I guess, or on the screen, but this is Lee Johnson. He is the protagonist of the Monsanto Papers. And the book tells the story really of Lee and how he's been suffering horribly from cancer, from a type of non-Hodgkin lymphoma that manifests in the skin. It's called mycosis fungoides. And sadly, in Lee's case, he's expected to be terminal. And so the book details really Lee's story. You go into his home and you meet his kids and his wife, and you see him before his sickness, and he's living just a really good life, a simple life. He grew up without a father, really, in his life, without his father present, and he wanted his boys to have a different experience. He really wanted to be involved and invested in being a good role model, and worked really hard to provide a good life. He worked as a school groundskeeper in California, and a large part of his job was spraying an herbicide made with a chemical called glyphosate. People may or may not be familiar with that. But he was spraying these products, Ranger Pro and Roundup, around the school district. And he has an accident. We'll switch here. He has an accident at one point. This is Roundup. This is glyphosate use. Just a little stat here. You can see it's a very pervasive product that Monsanto has marketed since 1974. It's been on the market now, for decades. It's used in agriculture, not only in school districts like where Lee was working, and parks and playgrounds, but used heavily by farmers in agriculture to control weeds that grow in their fields, and compete for nutrients and things in the soil with the crops that farmers are trying to grow. Farmers have loved it. It's also used on golf courses. It's pretty pervasive. Its residues of glyphosate are actually found not only in the food that we eat and the water that we drink, but typically if you have your urine tested for glyphosate, you will find that you do have this weed killer in your own body. It's used so much, actually, that government researchers have actually found it in rainfall. But Monsanto was always marketed as incredibly safe, and Lee felt very safe when he was using it. He did wear protective gear because he was, experienced and trained in applications. But he did have a horrible accident when he was using it. And this takes you through, the book takes you through the day that he had that accident as a tank sprayer loaded with, lots and lots of this weed killer. Hose came off, a large spray, a fountain of this is going off in the truck, and Lee sort of jumps in to try to stop the leak and protect a waterway, to keep this chemical from running down into a waterway. And what happens over the next several months and year is that Lee becomes sicker, and his skin he always said he had perfect skin. He was very proud of his appearance. His skin becomes more and more damaged. At first, he just has one little lesion above the knee, wonders what it is, goes to see a doctor. They think maybe he's got skin cancer. They start to treat that. But it just starts to spread, and no treatment really seems to take care of it. So you follow Lee as he becomes overwhelmed, really, with these very painful and awful lesions that spread all over his body. And then you meet in the book Lee's legal team, and these guys are just real characters. And it's the story of Lee Johnson, but it's also the story of this really fascinating mass tort system that we have in the United States, and the accountability that these lawyers who work for people like Lee Johnson or other consumers who've been injured by medical products, how they put these cases together, and the evidence that they must get, and the ins and outs and strategies and hoops that they jump through to try to hold very powerful companies accountable. So you meet Mike Miller, sort of the first one. His firm was advertising for clients, and Lee Johnson saw an ad, and he had reached out to Monsanto to ask Monsanto, actually, when he was getting sick, should I keep spraying this chemical? I've got cancer, but he needed his job, and Monsanto never would get back to him, never would advise him. So he finally reaches out to this law firm, and these guys are really interesting and eclectic lawyers. So you see sort of the mass tort system, the good, the bad, and the ugly of how that goes behind the scenes. The lawyers all started advertising for clients, likely, after this happened. And this was March of 2015. This was when the World Health Organization's cancer experts came together. And this is the International Agency for Research on Cancer, and we call it IARC for short. But they took a look at glyphosate. They decided to do this because glyphosate was being so widely used around the world. And that's what this organization does, is when there is a chemical or a substance that is rising in use and a lot of people are exposed to it, it's the job of this agency or these scientists to examine literature, scientific literature, epidemiology studies and toxicology, to determine, does this cause cancer? What does the weight of evidence look like? And so this group did this, and they came up in March of 2015 with a determination that glyphosate, that Monsanto had always said was completely safe, was actually a probable human carcinogen with an association in particular to non-Hodgkin lymphoma. And rates of NHL have risen or had been on the rise for many years, and it was a real concern, as are many types of cancer and other disease. So the lawyers saw this and they thought, we really want to get into this. We want to find out what's going on. We want to take Monsanto to court and do discovery, because when you bring a lawsuit like this against a company, if you prevail in the initial steps, the court will order discovery, order the companies to turn over sort of internal records and emails and such. And so these lawyers get, you see in the book, they get these, they sit down with Monsanto and they negotiate some terms, but they eventually get several million pages of internal Monsanto documents. And these are what we call the Monsanto Papers, and that's the title of the book. And I was there, and actually at 12:01 a.m., we describe this in the book, when the lawyers found a sort of a loophole way to sort of publicly release a lot of these documents. And this is well before Lee's trial. And what we saw in these documents is just astounding, because you see levels of deception that have gone on, strategies to deceive the public, regulators, farmers, consumers, by this company to hide the risks of its products and really attack and harass and suppress any information or anyone carrying that information that could create doubt or concern about the risks. So this is just one. We don't have time to show you millions of pages, obviously. This is one of the first ones that the lawyers saw that really, they said, wow, this is important. Because this is a Monsanto scientist writing in 2003, you can't say Roundup's not a carcinogen. We have not done the necessary testing on the formulation to make that statement. And the lawyers saw it and they said, my gosh, what do you mean? You're telling us it's not a carcinogen. And Monsanto reacted, after the international agency said it was a probably human carcinogen. Monsanto said, absolutely not. Junk science, politically motivated scientists did everything they could to discredit these cancer scientists with IARC. And here the lawyers see that they say they've never done the testing. And this is an important point to underscore, because they weren't required to do the testing. The EPA, as well as European regulators, don't require companies like Monsanto or others who are putting these chemical products like Roundup out into the marketplace. They don't require them to do long-term carcinogenicity testing on their finished products. And when I first learned that seems sort of remarkable. You would think that products that people are using around the world, the most widely used weed killer in the world, you would want to understand if it can cause cancer or not. The EPA, the way that it's regulated, they only require these tests on the active ingredient, glyphosate. They don't require it on the formulations when you're mixing glyphosate with other chemicals and other substances. And what they found in subsequent years is that the finished product is much more toxic than the active ingredient glyphosate alone. So you can read all about that in my first book. Ghostwriting, this is something else that the lawyers saw in the internal documents. And I'm just going to show you a couple things, but it's important to understand ghostwriting is not unique to Monsanto. Ghostwriting is essentially when there's an author or multiple authors on a paper or an article or anything that you're reading, and those people aren't really the people who wrote it. It's a form of deception. For Monsanto, it was particularly important because they felt that if papers or articles looked to be independent of them, that they would be deemed credible, not biased, because of course Monsanto is going to tout the safety of its own product. So if you have third parties, independent parties saying it's safe, it would be more credible. So Monsanto talks about this. Here's a couple of emails. This is after, well, it's actually before the IARC announcement that glyphosate was a probable human carcinogen. But Monsanto is anticipating that this group will find that this is a probable human carcinogen. And so they're deciding that it would be a really good idea to ghostwrite some new scientific papers to put out there publicly to refute or rebut the International Cancer Agency that they know is going to find some link to cancer in their product. And they say here, this is a senior scientist, and he's saying, here's what we could do. We could ghostwrite the exposure and tox and genotox sections. We could add these authors. We'll do the writing. They can just edit and sign their names. Recall that's how we handled William Croson Monroe 2000. William Croson Monroe was a fundamental, foundational paper that was published in the year 2000 that was given to regulators around the world that Monsanto considered its best defense for glyphosate, because it just basically said it doesn't cause cancer, it doesn't harm reproductive health, it's the be all end all forever and ever. And we see here that they talk about ghostwriting that. This is something else we saw in the internal documents. This is Forbes magazine, was subject of a lot of ghostwritten articles, apparently. This is an academic named Henry Miller, who had an article that he wrote in Forbes magazine, sort of an opinion piece, again, talking about how safe this chemical was and how ridiculous it was for this International Cancer Agency to say it could be a probable human carcinogen. And you see in the internal documents, a lot of back and forth where Monsanto and their PR team are actually writing the article and talking to Henry Miller about getting it into Forbes under his name. And it was when Forbes realized this, they yanked it back and they don't allow Henry Miller to write for them anymore. This is one more example. This was in a deposition of a Monsanto lawyer and some emails that came out, but this is where they're talking about, it'd be great to have some op-eds and letters to the editor, placed in newspapers around the country so that when people are reading them, they'll, all of these scientific voices and others are saying, no, this is really safe. This International Cancer Agency is wrong. And you see that Monsanto's hired this media house, a group, to actually write the letters and write the pieces. And then they're going to find authors and get them placed. And this is my last example, just one more. This is another scientist inside Monsanto, and he's written a paper and he's trying to find some independent name to put on it. This one was talking about how safe genetically engineered food grain was for livestock, and because there were some questions about that. And so he has this paper, but you can see he's saying, it's kind of tricky to find somebody because he's concerned that faculty members may not want to take something they did not produce and slap their names on it. It's just mind-boggling sometimes the ease with which they engaged in these practices that were designed to be deceptive. Questionable EPA interactions, there's a lot of these. There was an Office of Inspector General investigation that was launched after some of these papers came out that I write about in my book. There's one case that's kind of a good example to use, but there was another government agency called the ATSDR, Agency for Toxic Substances Disease Registry, which is part of Health and Human Services. They wanted to look at this chemical, this weed killing chemical, and understand the toxicity. They were also concerned about it at the same time that the international agency was. And they were going to look at it. Monsanto, you can see, gets very freaked out. And the internal emails and text messages, they're talking about, we need to stop this or block it or slow it down or something because we're afraid they might agree with IARC and we don't want this to happen. So we're going to engage the EPA. They write to the EPA, they text the EPA officials, and the EPA jumps on it and says, yes, we can help you. We will try to get this. And there were many people that were involved, and I've written a lot about that. But this is just one guy, Jess Rowland. Jess was actually the person in charge of the cancer review of glyphosate at the EPA. And you can see Monsanto's talking to him and reports back that Jess is on board and he's going to work to try to kill that review. If I can kill it, I should get a medal, they say Jess told them. They don't know if he can do it. They doubt it, but it's good to know that the EPA is actually going to make the effort. Again, this is the EPA that's supposed to be working for us, and they're working pretty hard for Monsanto. And you see this another email. Jess, the same guy, is going to be retiring pretty soon. He can probably be really helpful to us in our defense of glyphosate. Front groups. This is another sort of common strategy that Monsanto and all the other big agrochemical companies engage in and sort of perfected by the tobacco industry. You fund different organizations and support them secretly so they look like they're independent of you, and then they can also carry out your messaging. And Monsanto employed these people, these organizations, secretly supported them. One internal Monsanto memo calls them industry partners. The American Council on Science and Health, which is one that writes very frequently about me and other people, other reporters and scientists, in not a very nice way. You see here some internal, even though they purport not to be tied to Monsanto or other companies, and they purport to be independent, an independent scientific group. You see them in these emails writing to Monsanto, begging for more money. You've been great, giving us money in the past. We need more. You hear Monsanto saying you will not get a better value for your dollar than ACSH, and agreeing to give them more money secretly, not disclosed on their website at all. These are a couple quotes from the judges that ended up, that oversaw a lot of this Roundup litigation. And you can see that both of these judges are saying, it's pretty clear, fair amount of evidence. The only thing Monsanto cared about was undermining the people raising concerns about whether Roundup caused cancer. Didn't seem concerned at all about getting to the truth of whether glyphosate caused cancer. This is sort of a summary of the litigation. 100,000 plaintiffs in the US, all alleging the same thing, that exposure to these products, Roundup and other glyphosate-based weed killers made by Monsanto, caused them to develop non-Hodgkin lymphoma. Many of them have died before their cases have gone to trial or received any money. Last year, Bayer did agree that they would pay 9, 10, around $11 billion out to try to settle the majority of these cases. It's still ongoing. They have not been able to put this to bed yet. So the story continues. And just as I said, to put this in the larger context of how I began, I think we're really on the wrong path here. Cancer has become all too common. The statistic still staggers me every time I look at it. 39.5, 40% of men and the women in the United States are expected to get cancer in their lifetimes. 40%. And I'm guessing that everybody listening knows somebody who has cancer or has died of cancer, or you have had cancer, or, you know, it's becoming far too common, and it shouldn't be. We shouldn't become comfortable and complacent with chemotherapy and radiation and surgically removing, you know, breasts and other body parts. I mean, that's wrong. More than 600,000 died last year from cancer, you know, 550 from COVID, 660 from cancer every single year. That's just in the United States. This is by 2040, the number of new cancer cases per year worldwide expected to rise from 18 million now to $29.5 million. 29.5 million people. And tragically, we're seeing cancer in kids go up for many different types of cancers. And, you know, if we don't care about ourselves, we've got to care about our kids. There are many causes of cancer. Obviously, there are genetic causation factors. There are a whole lot of substances and compounds and things. Environmental toxins, though, are recognized by scientists, by our own government, as contributing. And pesticides are part of that class of environmental toxins that we know are causing and contributing to rising rates of non-Hodgkin lymphoma, multiple myeloma, prostate, liver, lung, all of these, as well as reproductive problems, including fertility. You should probably have the author on. You talked about, I can't remember her name now, but she has a new book out called Countdown, that's looking at just the really dramatic rise in infertility and reproductive problems that we're seeing as testosterone, you know, and sperm counts drop. We're being poisoned, and, you know, our future generations are at risk. There are insecticides out there, one called chlorpyrifos in particular, but many others that science shows us harm children's brain development and contribute to autism and ADHD, attention deficit. We're allowing them to be sprayed on foods. These chlorpyrifos and other products are in the food we eat and the water we drink. They're in our homes. Our U.S. National Toxicology Program says we've got to address this. You know, companies don't want us to, but we have to. There are over 1 billion pounds of pesticides used in the U.S. every year. 50 million Americans get drinking water from groundwater that the government believes is contaminated by pesticides. And as I said, their pesticide residues are an array of foods, and our EPA says, don't worry about it, it's fine. Weed killer, fungicide, insecticide in your food, it's fine, don't worry about it. But a lot of scientists say, yes, we need to worry about it. More than 90% of Americans have pesticides or their byproducts in their bodies. If you look at blood serums, if you look at urine, you will find invariably pesticide residues. The United Nations considers this such a significant problem. They're calling for a comprehensive new global treaty to address this, to remove the use of dangerous pesticides in farming, and really try to embrace this growing movement for regenerative agriculture and more sustainable practices. The data does not support what the companies say. We do not need these pesticides to feed the world. There are other ways. Not just as humans at risk, we see an array of evidence that pesticides are contributing to a decline in beneficial insect species that we need. Plummeting insect numbers threaten the collapse of nature. We are all intertwined. Biodiversity is very important. We're seeing a loss of birds. You know, there's a whole book out about this and much data to show this. Pesticides are a factor as well. You know, I don't think there could be any more warning signs than what we're seeing. So, and as I close, I know it's time to close. I want to honor my father. This is Chuck Gillam. He should have celebrated his 89th birthday 2 days ago on Friday, but tragically 6 months ago he died from cancer. He devoted the last 25 years of his life to just being an active, outspoken environmentalist, you know, and he was like always on me. He didn't think that my little work of writing books was nearly enough. But he helped found many, many years ago this Sustainable Sanctuary Coalition in Kansas City. And you can see here, this is the goal, the mission statement: to preach, teach, model, and advocate for sustainable living and ecological justice for all of creation. And I think that so well said. And the philosophy of this group, Sustainable Sanctuary, is a powerful call to action. We are all connected to God, to each other, to all of creation, and have a God-given responsibility for the greater well-being of the whole. We have a spiritual, religious, and moral imperative to be good stewards of the earth and its resources. You know, can't say it any better than that. So, as I said in my introduction, I think Earth Day is a reminder that we should care for the earth as we care for our children, because the two are inextricably linked. When we poison our planet, we poison our children and their future. But if we work to nurture and sustain the planet we share, we provide a healthy home for generations to come. And I got 3 kids, and that's what I want to do. So I hope that resonates. I hope I can get back here. I'm going to stop sharing. Did that work?
Yeah.
Okay. I hope you heard me. Wouldn't that be terrible if my audio was off the whole time?
We heard you loud and clear,
Okay.
Carey. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
And it just, I think over and over, I quote Jay Mankiewicz, again, that song he sang: "As I have come to know this world from the moment of my birth until the day my life is done, I pledge allegiance to the earth." Jay, thank you forever for writing that. I sing it over and over, especially on the time of Earth Day. Carey, I don't know if you realize, but Lee is on the call with us.
Lee! When
Hi,
did
Lee.
you join?
Where are you? Let's see if I can get Lee to.
Yeah, I had to unmute my mic. My mic was muted on purpose.
There you are.
Lee, I'm so
Yeah.
glad you got up.
Not easy.
Not easy. Did you hear me talk about you?
Nah, I was just laying there in bed and I said, "Oh man, I got this thing with Carey. What time is it?" And my wife was like, "Oh, it's 8:30. It's too late. You already missed it." And I'm like, "Nah, I didn't miss it. Let me just go see what's going on." Then my phone was dead, so I had to get on a charger. So I'm in the garage on the charger right now. Just,
Oh my gosh. Okay.
yeah, just winging it right now. So
Lee is one of my favorite people. Like, he has been so kind, and he let me spend so much time with him writing, trying to get this book together and really understand everything he's gone through. And Lee, like, I brag about you all the time. You probably never hear me. I just think you're the most remarkable person for what you've gone through, and just your devotion to like kids and family, and also like just messaging to people about pesticide dangers, and you're just such a cool guy. So I'm good.
well, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate all your kind words. I just try to be me. I don't switch up. I don't change for groups or whatever. I'm just who I am. So hopefully it's a genuine person. So that's all I try to do, is just be genuine.
Yeah. Well, I could ask Lee a bunch of questions, or he could just talk. Or do you have questions? I don't want to just take up your time.
Please, Carey, go ahead. We'd like to hear from both you and Lee as much as we can. I said to you before, we don't have time constraint. We'd like to be done by 1, but that's a whole hour away. So, Lee, I want to say hi to you, and on behalf of this church, just wish you the very best, and to your family as well. And that's the sincerest wish of good health and to you and your family, both for the short and long term.
So thank you. And are you guys broadcasting live from the church?
We are broadcasting live on our YouTube channel, both this Zoom session that has about 20 people joining us, and also on YouTube, which has a similar number of people or so joining us, and many will watch later on on their own schedule.
Right. Okay, that's cool.
So Lee, like, tell us about your story. Can you tell us just a little bit about it and like how you've come to change your mind about pesticides and glyphosate and Monsanto?
I mean, my story is started with me just basically having a basic job at a school district out here in California. And I was supposed to apply pesticides for weeds and take care of other uh, things that got in the way of school time. So whether it be insects or weeds or small animals or whatever, I had to take care of all of that stuff. So that's how my whole thing started, with just basically having a job to be a pest controller inside of a school district. And I had never used Roundup or glyphosate products before. I never even knew that stuff was something people really worried about. We picked our weeds at my home and we did weed eaters and stuff like that. So that's what I grew up around. So when I went to the school district, that was a part of their protocol, is to get these big drums of pesticide and apply it to various areas at the school district in Benicia. And I ended up getting exposed to the pesticides more than once, and probably more than the 2 times that I noted, I probably got pesticides on my skin every day. So I don't know. Just learning to be a pesticide user and a pest controller, like you talked about the food that we eat and whatever else, I learned that the government actually allows a certain amount of pesticides onto our foods. Like when they test our food before they sell it, or if they do their random little checks, they know that there's pesticides on your apples and on your in your weed and in your corn and this and that. They actually apply this stuff right onto the vegetables, so, and onto the fruit. So it's definitely prevalent in all of our food, and it's not something that they really understand. They understand it more now since the more data has been shared, but it's really dangerous, and we are really consuming and using too much. The overuse is really bad. So yeah, my story is just that. My story is just basically having a job as a pesticide applicator, ended up with cancer, ended up taking Monsanto to court because I basically understood that I had been exposed to their products, and there's no other reason for me to get skin cancer. I was not a sunbather. I was not uh, any person that should be, I wasn't even in the sun a lot. And if I was, I had on a hat and clothing and whatever. So I had no reason to end up with skin cancer. So it was easy for me to track down that Monsanto was probably the reason for my skin cancer, because I was new to this product and new to applicating. And so it wasn't that hard after I changed my lotions and soaps and washing detergent. It just was easy to track down that this is what happened to me, over the last few months. So I'm glad I was able to pay attention and able to track the thing down and get a hold of what was going on. And I don't know. That's my story. It's just, now it's just a long battle with cancer. You know what I mean? Like you were talking about earlier with folks who, that's getting cancer, and like your dad with his battle and everything. And yeah, it's a very long struggle, and it's one that I don't think people really understand. Like even the doctors, when I talk to doctors or I'm going through whatever I'm going through, they don't have a lot of answers. So it's rare And yeah, they don't know much about my situation. I just kind of go through it. So
And Lee,
yeah.
you were diagnosed basically, or told you at one point you had 18 months left to live. And Monsanto's lawyers said, no, he's got like 24 months to live. But you kind of decided, you know what, you're just not going to die. It's pretty much what you've told me.
Yeah, I was actually really close to death when that diagnosis was 18 months. It was the treatments that I was taking, and the cancer itself was weighing a very heavy toll on my health and my body. Just like right now, I'm going through a very low dip because I'm not taking any treatments right now. And I switched doctors, and it's very tough. And my skin gets very rough and crazy and painful really fast. So yeah, I've been close to death a few times, but I think because of my age and because of the cancer being on my skin, I've been very blessed and lucky that it's not on internal organs. If this cancer was on the inside of me and running rapid through my body or touching on vital parts like a heart or liver or lungs, then I definitely would probably be done. It's a very aggressive form of lymphoma, but like cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, the reason why they call it cutaneous is because it's a skin cancer. So if you can keep it contained to your skin, you'll be okay. But the thing is that you don't have any control over whether it goes inside or gets, more into your blood, because it is a blood cancer. So I do have the cancer in my blood, but I don't know. I've been lucky. I've been blessed, to survive, 5 years with this cancer.
Right. Yeah. And Lee, I just want to say a few more words about Lee. He's a songwriter too, and a musician, and he's written some songs about this, and he's an artist. I talk about that in my book. Just a really creative, soulful, intelligent person. But he's traveled around too when his cancer will allow it. He's traveled a bit to speak about, his situation, and been really generous in doing that, not just sitting home worrying about himself, but really trying to worry about other people and take the message of what he's learned and what he knows to try to get school districts to stop using, and colleges and things to stop using these pesticides. So he's
Lee, what do you play?
Well, that's another interesting story, because I really love piano, but I don't know, like, if you listen to my music and you listen to the songs that I've written, I've produced music for other artists and I produce for myself. But to be honest, and I'm going to start saying this a lot more, is that I don't know a C sharp from a B minor. So I play by ear. I look for the notes that I want to find on the keyboard until I find them. And I make drum patterns, and I make all these other little guitars and whatever computer, music production has afforded us. And I make full-blown productions. But in respect to musicians, I have to always remember that I don't read music. I don't write music. I don't, like I said, I don't know. I can't tell you I'm in B minor. Go ahead and join me in this. Let's jam. And I'm in C sharp right now. No, I don't know that stuff.
All right.
But you can go to any of my sites or whatever, listen to my songs, and you'll say, "Oh, he's a musician." So my uncle asked me one time, "Am I a musician?" And I didn't want to say it because I didn't think I was a musician, because I didn't play anything. But I think I play a little bit of piano, and I love all instruments, and I love music. But yeah, I play by ear is what it's called.
All right. All right. So did you say my sites? Do you have like some music up on some like a YouTube or a Facebook or something?
Yeah, I have antlee.com.
How
Antlee.com is my website. And then
ANT?
yeah, ANTLEE. Anthony Lee is my middle name,
I
so
see.
it's Ant Lee. Yeah. And then on YouTube I have 707 Ant Lee spraybar.com at YouTube. So yeah, I'm just putting
All
stuff out
right.
there slowly but surely.
Well, check it out. Maybe we can get you to share some music with us sometime over Zoom. But yeah, that's antlee.com. I'm gonna put that on the chat so folks can check that out. To
A little different than Jay's music, just a warning.
I don't know what kind of music Jay plays, but
Well,
he's got a nice setup over there.
we'll get to hear one more song from Jay in a minute. Carey, any more questions for Lee, or should we proceed to?
Well, are there any Q&A? You said the audience.
Let's have one last song from Jay,
Okay.
and then some more Q&A with Lee and you. Okay. First, I want to pick up a very heavy basket right here. You see the basket? This is our collection basket. It's a very big basket, and it's very heavy because it has my springtime eggs that I brought in for Easter right now. I forgot to take them out. Some beautiful ones. I love this. This is a rock from an island in Maine that we go to. This beach makes beautiful rocks. I'll put it right up to the camera to show you and see if I can make it big. Beautiful rocks in the basket, but we're repurposing the basket and turn it in. Oh, here's a little Easter egg and a little wooden egg. So we're repurposing this into our collection basket where we ask you to help us make these incredible programs happen, like Carey Gillam and Lee Johnson. You can send it to the address that's in the chat, 565 Boylston Street, your check. And I want to thank everybody who responded to our newsletter, our newsletter pitch. Our new newsletter just came out 2 weeks ago, and it's also on our website. And tell you that you can send a check there. You can also go to our website, communitychurchofboston.org. And there's a way to help us with credit card or PayPal. I want to tell you also that Clint Richmond has put up some information about Massachusetts bills that are address this problem of pesticides and chemical fertilizers. So check out those websites and find out more about those bills that are in the House and the Senate right now. Jay Mankita, you got a song for us? And Jay, thank you so much for joining us, and greetings to your family and to Susan and their boy Mojo. I miss you, and I hope to see you again soon. We can be together.
We miss you too, Dean. Thank you so much, and it was really inspiring to hear Carey's talk and to hear from Lee, and I am so moved by the struggle and the rise to the incredible challenge that I'm honored to be here today. So thank you again, Dean, and thank you, Carey and Lee, and everybody who's here also. I got a message that my sound was too low, so I turned it up a little bit. How does this that sound all right? All right. Well, okay then. So I chose to do a song just about the cycle of life and sun, wind, soil, and rain. And just haven't sung it in a while. And I was going to mention this to Lee. I also don't read music, and I'm just almost always just winging it when I play, hoping I remember all the chords. And if I don't, I'll just hopefully recover quickly when I don't. So sun and wind and soil and rain make fruits
Fruits and veggies, seeds and grains come around and around again. Fruits and veggies, seeds and grains make happy people who are links in the chain. Happy people who are links in the chain come around and around again. The circle of life is a beautiful one. Around the earth as we circle, the sun circles around and then comes around again. Happy people who are links in the chain work together, help the earth sustain. Work together, help the earth sustain. Come around and around again. Work together, help the earth sustain. Bring sun and wind and soil and rain. Sun and wind, soil and rain come around and around again. The circle of life is a beautiful one. Around the earth as we circle, the sun circles around and then comes around again. Sun and wind, soil and rain make fruits and veggies, seeds and grains. Fruits and veggies, seeds and grains come around and around again. Come around and around again.
All right.
Thank you, Jay Mankita. We have a question from Alvin Foster. Would you like to unmute, Alvin, and say hello? Hi, Alvin. Alvin had his hand up, so we'll go on to someone else. I want to just chime in with Carey and Lee and talk about my incredible love for the Land Institute that's out Carey's way, that is working to change agriculture in America and on the planet. The Midwest used to have this much topsoil, and now it has that much topsoil because all of it has ran down the Mississippi and gone to the Gulf of Mexico, and along with it, all kinds of pesticides and chemicals, and it's not okay. And it's a huge, huge challenge to change agriculture forever. And it's at the Land Institute that I heard about an amazing man named Percy Schmeiser. And I don't know if you folks know about Percy Schmeiser. He was a canola farmer in Saskatchewan in Canada. A little bit of Monsanto seed drifted over from another farm onto his farm. He was against Monsanto, and he grew some Monsanto seed because it came from another farm. And because he was so opposed to Monsanto, Monsanto targeted him and basically ruined him by unleashing an army of lawyers and suing him for having grown their seed without a license. It was just the most incredible story that I've ever heard. And he has since passed, but there is now, amazingly, I just heard this, a Schmeiser law in Germany that basically is against a company like Monsanto or Bayer suing a farmer who, for no reason of his own, grows seed on their soil. This is the sort of Monsanto, Kansas company, Carey, and as far as I can tell, just evil to the core. Am I missing something, or
Is that
or
a
is that
question for
true?
me? Is that a question
Yeah.
for me? Monsanto basically took hundreds of farmers to court over genetically engineered seeds. They patented these new traits in crops to make them weed resistant, to make them glyphosate tolerant. And they called them Roundup Ready crops. And so they made these genetic transformations in these seeds and then patented it. And so farmers who wanted to plant the seeds had to basically pay for it. It was a royalty licensing, and they couldn't replant them every year. Monsanto wanted to make sure that they, got their intellectual property protected, and farmers would be forced to buy new seeds every year, which was not the way farmers used to farm. They would save seed and then replant. And Percy maintained that he did not intentionally use their genetically engineered seed, that somehow it got into his farm. But Monsanto took him to court, and it was a long battle for him, and he sort of became, the emblem, the star of that movement and that effort.
Yeah, I actually know about Percy. I traveled to Canada, and they actually have a song about Percy. And what's famous about Percy is that people say that I'm the first person that beat Monsanto, but in essence, Percy is the first person to ever beat Monsanto. And I think he charged him $1 or something like that. It was some weird amount where he didn't even really, want to pursue some crazy amount. But Percy was the first one to beat Monsanto. It wasn't me.
But you were the first one to beat him on Roundup, which, is a really big deal. Really big deal. I mean,
yeah, it is. But he, small farmer like that, to win against them, that was pretty big too, I think.
Yeah. Lee knows his stuff. See, guys?
Yeah. Well, I see Susie's hand up. Hi, Susie. Go ahead. Unmute. There you go.
I just wanted to ask either Carey or Lee, what year was it when the EPA prevented the ATSDR review of the product, and who was head of the EPA at that time?
Jim Jones. That was 2015 is when all of that kind of went down. And Jim Jones, Jim Jones was the head of the Office of Pesticide Programs. I don't remember who the top dog was. It was the Obama administration. Who was it? I can't remember now. Anyway, Jim Jones was the head of the Office of Pesticide Programs, and Jack Hausinger was sort of a deputy. And so there are emails that I write about that you see between Jim and Jack Hausinger, and then Jess Rowland and these other people. And anyway, so it was those guys that sort of jumped into action as soon as Monsanto, and then the text messages, they roped in these other people, and it was just a really remarkable sort of response, I thought, from the EPA to do that. But
and still during the Obama administration.
Yeah, just during the Obama administration.
EPA during Obama was our own Gina McCarthy.
That's it.
Who grew up right here in Jamaica Plain.
There you go. That's it. Yeah. I mean, the corruption that we've seen in the EPA is really bipartisan. I mean, it's gone on. I've authored a chapter for a textbook on this. Like, the EPA in every administration, in every decade, you've seen this. It's a corporate capture, essentially, of the agency. There's just too much money in Washington, and this really good scientists inside the agency can't do their jobs and can't do their work. And you see where they, even on glyphosate, many chemicals, they say, we need to restrict this. This looks like it could cause cancer. This is bad for reproductive health. But the political appointees and the people at the top, squash that. There's just too much money at stake and too much political power, and it's not right.
I would like to again point out in the chat, Clint Richmond is putting up a bunch of great stuff. A bill that would make school grounds follow organic pest management, no glyphosate, 2,4-D, etc. Clint tells us about a website, a movie that's called Take Part, Food Inc. and another organization called Real Organic Project. Thank you, Clint, for all of these. Here's a question for Lee. What are your lyrics in the song you wrote about the Canadian? Would you speak them to us as a poem? What do you think, Lee? You have that on the end of your tongue?
Did we lose Lee? Lee, are you there?
Let's see, it's maybe muted. Let's try and find Lee.
Yeah, what was the question? I got knocked off for a minute.
One of our listeners wants to know more about that Percy Schmeiser poem or song that you wrote.
No, I didn't write the song, but there is a song that somebody wrote. It's a Canadian artist that wrote that song about him.
Okay, I'm gonna look for that.
Yeah, it's an old, I think it's like folk music. It's crazy. It's really cool.
Yeah. Another place you can find maybe one of Percy's talks, you go to the Land Institute's website, probably landinstitute.org. This is they're in Salina, Kansas, right in the middle of the state, and they do just this incredible work on trying to develop agriculture based on perennial crops, not on crops that are annual, that you have to dig up every year or plow every year. And they have this thing called the Prairie Festival where Carey should speak. Actually, I think they would love to have you and Lee. It's in every year in September. I've never attended, I'm sad to say, but they always have a wonderful lineup of speakers on issues of ecology and plants and plant breeding. It's a really a feast of just all these PhDs that are doing this research on perennial agriculture. Landinstitute.org. And you can find, I'm pretty sure, Percy Schmeiser, Schmeiser, find his talk, which is some years ago before he passed. He was already probably in his 80s when this whole thing came down, and he fought Monsanto for decades trying to get himself absolved of this harassment from them. I see Kevin's hand up. Go
Yes.
ahead, Kevin. Hi, Kevin.
Okay, it's just that are there any pure seed organizations that are not being attacked by the GMO corporations in the United States or in the world? Are they constantly being altered? As Percy Schmeiser, in his experience, they were plotting against him. Because he was attacking them. I'm just saying, are there any seeds that are how do I describe it? Pure, that are not being touched by corporations for the sake of profit? Do you know what
yes. I mean, yes, not. So Monsanto and other companies, Monsanto, before it was purchased by Bayer in 2018, Bayer, actually the giant pharmaceutical company based in Germany, bought Monsanto in June of 2018, just as the Lee Johnson trial was starting. One of the reasons they bought Monsanto was not only because of its agrochemical business, but because it had become the world's largest seed company. Monsanto purchased seed companies around the world, not only these row crops that we're familiar with them, but fruits and vegetables. And Monsanto also had been buying up germplasm companies. So Monsanto and its allies, brethren in the industry, really have taken over control of a very large supply of the world's seeds. But that doesn't mean they're all genetically engineered. They haven't done that with all the seed varieties, but they are trying to control this. And that's been a concern, with regulators and such. Are they going to Are they going to have too much control? And that's an ongoing debate in many countries.
One thing I did know, I believe it's that people have tried to do that in Europe, where in the island of, it's near Norway, island of Spitsbergen, where they have created kind of a bank. It's like where they protect seeds. They've collected them.
Yeah.
There are seeds that have been discovered all around the world. They want to protect it from these attacks of by corporations. They're out there to just make money. Yeah. Destroy our environment.
Lee, I'm sorry, Carey, another question for you. We have another speaker at the end of our season, June 27th, whose name is Stephen Donziger. Stephen successfully, is an attorney, successfully won a lawsuit against Chevron in Ecuador for their contamination, severe, extreme contamination of the Ecuadorian Amazon. This is a lawsuit on behalf of indigenous people there. Chevron's response to his winning that lawsuit was to unleash an army of lawyers in New York, where he lives, against Stephen in the United States. And with the help of a Trump-appointed federal judge, just unleashed a whole bunch of harassment against Stephen, and successfully had him disbarred, and he is now in house confinement in his house, and he has to wear a bracelet. It's just the most incredible story you've ever heard. I want to know if you, as a journalist, or any of those attorneys against Monsanto have been object of that kind of a harassment that really points to the fact that corporations not only own Washington, D.C., but they also own our legal system in many ways.
And there's a deep control of media as well. And as a media person for all of my career, a journalist for more than 30 years now, I hate saying them, but the evidence that we've seen in the Monsanto case is a real manipulation of media as well. To answer the question, yes. I've been subject to harassment, intimidation, threats to my career, all sorts of things for many, many, many years now, starting when I was at Reuters and starting to write about the scientific evidence and the problems that were happening in the environment, as well as with human health. I was doing that in the 2000s, well before the international agency said this was a probable human carcinogen, because the research was showing that. It was building, and I was writing about that for Reuters, and we've been able to get internal Monsanto documents that show that, I was targeted. I was one of the people that they targeted to take me down. And they had a whole plan to try to take down my first book. They had a spreadsheet with line items, Carey Gillam book action plan. And, they've done it to scientists and journalists, and not these lawyers, really. Not that I've seen. They've made a lot of noise about them, but one of Lee's lawyers is in prison right now, but I don't think that's because the companies went after him. I think he just got on the wrong path himself. But yeah, it's a hard battle out there. You try to tell the truth, and the companies don't want that out there, and they come after you.
Before there's another question, I want to tell everybody that Carey's book is available, islandpress.org. This information is all in the chat, and you can get 20% off the book if you use the code Gillam, which is Carey's last name, Gillam. Let's see if there's another question. Charlie mentioned that there's a website called seedsavers.org, one source of organic seeds. There's quite a few other ones as well. I'm going to see if there's anybody else with their hand up. And it looks like we're mostly just ending this with gratitude. Gratitude to Carey and to Lee, and best wishes to both of you. Lee, I'm going to look up your music on that website, and maybe we'll be back in touch with you. I'd love it if you would be able to share some music with us on some Sunday morning. What do you think of that?
No problem. Or like I said, it's on antlee.com, and if you look up or Google Ant Lee, all caps, ANTLEE, you can pretty much find me. So yeah, it's all good.
All right. We will do that.
Lee, I'm going to come visit soon. You up for another visit sometime?
I mean, I've been in such bad shape for the last few weeks that, I don't want to take up your time here with that, but
yeah, we'll
with
have
the transitioning from doctors and not taking any treatment, this cancer is just taking its toll. So I'm not in any shape for visits right now, but yeah, sometime in the future, that would be nice.
I'm so sorry, Lee.
It's all good. I mean, it's cancer. I mean, it could be worse. I could be dead. So I've been surviving, and it's a hard push.
Yeah. Thank you for joining today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I almost missed it. I was definitely in bed.
Go back to bed.
That's a good idea.
Or stay up and make some music. Just remember, everybody, as we say goodbye and thank Carey and Lee, that life is too short and then you die. So drink in every delicious moment and love all the people around you, your family, your friends, your neighbors, your community, your church. That's the way we will say goodbye to this beautiful event this morning. Carey, so thank you so much for joining us. Lee, we hope to be in touch with you both again, and we are here, Community Church of Boston, and we're hungry to learn and hungry to change the world, and we call ourselves a Peace and Justice congregation since 1920. We are 101 years old. We were going to have a big celebration last year, but COVID kind of rained on our party. So we've decided that the whole next century is going to be nothing but a celebration of every delicious moment. And on that note, I want to say thank you to everybody. Stay on as long as you need to copy and paste all the information that's in the chat. I would care to declare, for the sake of this beautiful day, beautiful Earth Sunday, I'm looking up at our skylights. There's balmy clouds. It's been ugly here for a long time. And on behalf of all of you and Carey and Lee, I'm going to declare the meeting at the building soon be over, all over this world. Thank you, Jay Mankita, for your beautiful music. All over this world, Lord, all over this world. Meeting at the building soon be over, all over this world. Amen. Hallelujah. And as Joseph Shabalala from South Africa says after his amen, bye, folks.
Bye.
Anybody who's still on want to say hello to each other and say what a phenomenal thing it is to be able to have Carey from Overland Park, Kansas, join us, and Lee from California. The town he worked in is called Venetia, California. I don't even know where that is. I was trying to look it up. Anybody know where Venetia, California is?
Sure it's not Venice?
I think I heard him say Venetia. But He's a really
There is the
nice guy.
Venice
And I want to be in touch with him and we get him to play some music for us.
Hello?
Everybody is muted. If you want to unmute, say hello. We're just kind of hanging out here after the meeting. Lenny is unmuted. Hi, Lenny. Lenny
How
doesn't.
are you?
I
Dean,
see.
can you hear
How's
me?
everything down there?
Everything is fine. I'll let everybody
I
know.
hear you.
You want to hear some news about Community Church? Next Tuesday, which is day after tomorrow, we're
Sure.
going to have the beginning of our heat pump, heating and air conditioning installation, electric, energy efficient heat pump installation. It's been a long time coming. We've been working on it since last summer, but it looks like it's actually going to start in just a couple of weeks, a couple of days. Next Tuesday, the installers are going to arrive and begin the job.
Are you getting credits from the state for that? Are you getting money from the state?
Well, usually those come in the form of a tax credit, and we don't pay taxes because we're a church. But we are getting, it's an amazing funding mechanism, which is through the utility, Eversource, which is paying for 2/3 of a $100,000 expense and also financing the other third, which is about $35,000, and we will be paying through our utility bill. So it's a beautiful thing, and we thought it was going to be way more expensive, and we're just really looking forward to getting this installation done. Let's see. Who else is still on? I see Alan is muted, and Ron is muted, and Jose Alemang, and Mary Lynn. Any of you want to say hello? They probably just have it on like having the radio on and or in the other room taking a leak or whatever. Did you all see the sandwich boards in front of the church? I wonder if, I got rid of it. I can't show it to you anymore, but I found out I can put a T-shirt over one of the sandwich boards and display political messages on T-shirts on the street in front of the church. So on that note, shall we say good afternoon to everybody and hope to join you next week for a program about Scott and Helen Nearing. The week after that, the program is Judith Woodruff. It's called The Red and Green of May Day. We've done that one before, and it's so good we wanted to do it again and redo it now that we sort of know a little bit about how to do Zoom.
There's a good series of webinars on Cuba for the next 4 Tuesdays. I got an email about it. Do you know about that, Dean?
No, but I bet Charlie does. July 26th Coalition. Charlie is gone, but
I think it's a national group. Well, you could ask Charlie to send out an email about it. It's very interesting.
You want to send me the link? I'll send out some news about it on our Facebook page.
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you
good.
now.
Sounds good.
Okay. I'm going.
Say goodbye to everybody. Kevin, nice to
All
see
right,
you.
going.
Lenny, Alan, Mary Lynn, Jose Alemang. Goodbye to all of you. Hasta la próxima. See you again soon. Bye. I'm seeing, Ron, that you're still on here, and you ask, where's PayPal? You can get to it from our website. there's a way to donate through PayPal from the website. I don't know if you can find it with a phone, but you go on a website through your computer or your laptop, you'll be able to see it. I'm just copying and pasting all of the entire chat. There we go. Copy and paste. All right.
Okay, I'm not on. I stayed off the broadcast because I didn't want to drown things out with the noise in the background here.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I'll just go to the website and
Okay.
hit PayPal.
Okay.
Okay,
Did
thanks a lot.
did you hear the broadcast?
I sure did.
Okay, good, good.
Yeah, I was
Good to
there
hear
most of it anyway.
All right.
I came in about 10 minutes late, I think. But,
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see